Jesus said, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Dear friends, when I read the gospel for today's Mass, I found it to be an amazing teaching on the part of Jesus. But what came to my mind as I read it was the television show called American Greed. Have any of you ever seen that? It tells stories about people who obviously think that life is all about money and wealth and power and fame. And perhaps the most interesting dimension of this show is that it inevitably tells us that it doesn't work. Greedy people, for whatever it is that they are searching, think that they have everything. And Jesus today in the gospel is telling us, as he told whoever was listening to him the first time he spoke this story, he is telling us, no, that's not what life is all about. Jesus is saying something greater constitutes life. It's a lot more than what we just heard proclaimed. It's a lot more than, hey, relax, eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow you die. If that's what you think, well, that's what you'll end up with. You'll end up fat like me. And I'm not so sure that you'll be so merry and you'll wake up dead and there won't be anything else. Jesus is telling us that there is more to life than the illusion of self-sufficiency. And so when you think about this gospel today, it raises up questions like, what do you think life is all about? How would you define what's important and what's not important? What would make your life full and happy? Now, when you get old like me, you look back. But you guys are a lot younger than I am, and you're looking forward. And so what are you looking forward to? This whole weekend has been about considering such questions. We have been trying to give some shape and some form to our thinking and to our experience about important matters. We've been considering things like truth and what makes truth truthful. We've been looking at things like forgiveness and mercy and what that does to people. And we've been looking at and considering the various ways in which we experience love. And all of this has been captured, or at least we've tried to capture it, in the theme for this year's conference. That you and I are chosen. Everyone who got up here to speak has brought out some aspect of what it means to be chosen. Well, I hope that all that we've done here has been helpful. Has it? I also hope that you have experienced, and what I mean by experienced, it's not just in your head. I hope that you have experienced with your whole person, with your mind and heart and body, that you have experienced the effect of knowing, really knowing, that you are chosen. I hope that you've had the opportunity during these days to feel the impact of knowing that you are wanted. God did not create junk. God created sons and daughters, and He loves each one of His daughters and each one of His sons. And you are wanted. There's too many people walking around who don't think that anybody gives a damn. I hope you have felt that somebody does. And I really pray that when we leave here, you will leave with a deeper appreciation of the passion with which you are loved by God. Love is not an idea. Love is a passionate experience. And I hope you have experienced and felt and appreciate something of that passion. And so being loved by God, that's the message and the grace which makes the difference in what your life and mine truly consists in. If that's not there, then all we have is whatever greediness we are pursuing. But if God's love is there, if the experience of being chosen and wanted and cared for and loved is there, then that makes all the difference. And we need to remind ourselves that God chooses us and loves us whether we see it or not. Now, today's gospel and the purpose of this weekend's conference has been and is to help each of us to see this, to see what we often fail to see that God is real, that love is real, and that life is about being loved and about being loving. So if we have spent a lot of time and energy and talent on this message, it's not only so that you can feel good, and I hope you do, but it's also because of a great hope and a great expectation. And that hope and expectation is that you and I would respond to being loved and chosen. Respond how? Well, respond by being appreciative. Respond by giving thanks. Ultimately, the hope and expectation is that we will respond by making a personal commitment to love God and to love somebody else back. Think about it. If you have been chosen, what difference does it make to you? Has it changed anything? Does it put a different slant on what's important and what's not important? And then think about this question. What do you want? And what do you choose? What do you want for yourself? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? What I'm talking about, St. Paul talked about in the second reading for today. When he says that because of Christ, the old self has been put aside. And that there is a new self that comes up and takes over. I guess when I considered the gospel story for today, I found myself wondering, am I a loser? Like the guy in the gospel? Are you a loser? Like the guy in the gospel? Are we chasing after the illusions of greed, the illusions of power, the illusions of self-sufficiency and false freedom? Because if you and I are chasing after those, then we're going to end up in a dead end. We're going to end up with nothing. And so, friends, to be chosen is an invitation to choose what is important for you to be and to do every day. So if you have experienced something of the truth and something of the transforming power of love this weekend, then you're no longer the person that walked in here Friday. Your identity has been changed. Knowing that you are chosen can shape your future. And it can motivate you to choose life as opposed to the illusions of life. And to choose truth and not to choose a lie. To choose the way of the Lord and not the way which leads to multiple variations of dead-end streets. I don't know if you remember what was said and read in the first reading for today's Mass. That happened a long time ago, about 3 minutes ago. And it says, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That poor guy was having a hard day that day. But what is he saying? It's another way of referring to the futility of life. Those disappointments that we encounter on any given day. It's about recognizing that so often everything that we invest in leads to nothing, and they are all temptations that we deal with every day, and they're all temptations to be a loser. And so how can we overcome this? How can we see that everything is not vanity, everything is not lost, everything is not forgotten? We do that by remembering that we are all sons and daughters of a loving God. And so I hope this weekend has helped you to see and to understand better that God cares. And I hope that you have opened yourself to the great longing and desire that God has for you. Now, why God wants to love you and me, I have no idea. But He's crazy because He's God. And He chooses to love you and I, in spite of the fact that so often we don't even care enough for ourselves. And so let us be grateful for this. Let us recognize that this is a tremendous, powerful, and transforming grace, and it can change everything. Let us not, as the gospel says today, let us not be foolish like the guy in the gospel who ends up with nothing. Rather, let us be wise and respond to God's love by choosing to give our hearts to God. Now, that expression, to give our hearts to God, I'm using this deliberately, and some of you have heard me say this before, but many of you have not heard me say what I'm going to say next. Because as soon as I shut up, we're going to say the creed. And the creed starts with the words, I believe. But I want to do a little lesson here. In Latin, I believe is credo. And if any of you know anything about Latin, a few up here do, maybe not too many down there, but credo is a combination of two words, a verb and a noun, an object. Dodare is to give. Cor cordis is heart. So whenever we say credo, we are saying, I give my heart to God. Imagine how that changes the words that we are going to say in a few minutes when we say the creed. Now, in English, we say, I believe. That doesn't catch the nuance, but it does mean I give my heart to God, to Jesus Christ, to the church. That's what we're here to do. When we are chosen, let us respond to that choice by giving our hearts to God. And in this year of faith, what better way to express faith than by the response of faith, which is to give one's heart to the one that is loved. So may the Lord bless all of you as you return to your homes. And I take one last moment or two to thank everyone who have put together this conference this year. I want to thank all the team and the people that have come in from outside, all the volunteers, all the hours and hours that have been put in to try to make this weekend an experience that will be memorable and that will sustain you for many, many years to come. So to all of you, to everyone that's up here, and finally to Bishop Brian Dunn, thank you for allowing us to be here in your diocese, and thank you for what you shared with us yesterday about what was happening with young people someplace else. Thank you very much.